Blessed Day Reflection by Abia listeners. My name is Abia Grant, and we are here to reflect on our life journey. We will be discussing topics related to self awareness, self improvement, and mental health. Also, the purpose of this safe space is for us to be free to discuss the ups and downs, celebrate the wins, and talk about ways to improve the lows. So, welcome to this podcast, and I hope you gain something from this time we share together. Hello everyone, how you doing? It is your girl Abia Grant. Welcome back to another episode of Reflection by Abia. I hope that you are doing well and you are having a blessed day. I am doing pretty good. Everything is going rather well. My life this past couple of weeks, to be honest with you, has been pretty comfortable. I have some exciting things that is actually going on or going to be going on in the next couple of weeks, but I am doing rather good. So just wanted to tell you guys that. Just to let you know, in case you wanted to know how I was doing. But like I said, I hope that you are doing well. So let's go ahead and get into this week's podcast episode. And this week I have been I always do a lot of reflection. I always like to reflect because it enables me the opportunity to always grow. And if you listen to my other podcast episodes, I always talk about growth, that we should always want to be better than, who we were before. And this week I have been doing a lot of reflecting and listening to other podcasters on their journey. And I wanted to talk about this topic because I feel like I touched on this last week, but I didn't really delve into it too much. The topic that I wanted to talk about is rooted in the truth and confronting insecurity authentically. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic is that I don't want to say often. I guess I'll speak for myself because I always say that I'm going to be speaking for myself. With myself, sometimes what happens is that I feel insecure. Um, and it has impacted my decisions. It has definitely directed me in places that I should have never even gotten to. I guess you could say, in retrospect, the fear of living authentically in my true self, of showing up as my true self, and people and myself just accepting the fact that this is who I am. It could be very, I don't want to say troublesome, but it could be difficult. I guess I just said troublesome, just in a different way. But I I wanted to talk about this because I think often we have a fear of that insecurity. We have a fear of being authentic to ourselves. And I have been trying to work on myself in regards into uh, having a better understanding for when those situations come about. Because what I realize is that sometimes, although you know what not to do, like it's as if you remember a situation, you know how it impacted you, but when it happens again, or it's a similar situation, sometimes you do not know how to react. Um, that second time around, even though you dealt with it the first time. You know what I mean? So I wanted to address that. I wanted to address some of the things that I have tried to or introduced to my journey that I think that will be useful, for you guys, possibly. So I wanted to talk about that, and hopefully, if there's something you can take from this conversation on one of those tools, then perfect. So I really wanted to start off with the definition of what it means to be like rooted in the truth. And being rooted in the truth means that you truly understand you are embracing your strengths, your weaknesses, while genuinely being authentic to yourself. You accept yourself, and this means your full self, not half of yourself, not the things that you like about yourself. You're accepting the good and the bad. So you're accepting your full self, which could be uncomfortable. It can require for you to face something again that you may not be comfortable with. So it can possibly be like your thoughts, your emotions, the things that you have experienced in your life, and just pretty much anything that's taken place, Now, what I find is that when you are living in, or you rooted in the truth, like you're living authentically, this could be very enlightening, but at the same time, it could be very confusing too. And that's kind of like, I guess you could say, where I have been in my past, and sometimes it does come about. It's like, I know that in I need to be me. I need to speak up for myself. I need to do what I need to do for me. However, it could be confusing at the same time depending on what factors may be involved. For instance, when I talked about in prior episodes of how I had left my job, and this was a place that I was at for 9 years. And in that period of time, I felt insecure to even move to a next job because I felt that if I have to relearn this process again, I felt comfortable in the situation that I was in. The experiences that I was having there, I just was not comfortable with the situation. And to be honest with you, I can add to that, it was a very scary time. Um, Not really understanding, or the unknown factor of, okay, what can be the possible outcome? Now, what happens in most of these cases, well, speaking to myself, is that these insecurities, as I mentioned before, you're very afraid to face those emotions. What I also notice is that at the same time, these things that are taking place often reshape our life. You know, Me making the decision to whether stay at my job or leave my job, different outcomes can transpire, or different things can be impacted due to this decision. So trying to make that decision on what is best for myself, again, it could be very overwhelming. Like even last week, I had mentioned in that episode, I talked about fear of being alone, and then I had came to a revelation in that episode that in order for me to feel secure in that relationship, I was basically seeking out security. These things may seem a little different from each other, from, me not wanting to leave my job because I felt, secure, and then me going into a relationship so that I can feel secure. But what I have learned is that although the scenarios are two different scenarios, the core factor of security or insecurity, or having to confront the problem, is still the same thing. It's still the same circumstances, even though it's totally two different situations. So, what I often like to do is I try to think about things that have taken place in my life where maybe, again, they're different situations. However, the factors that are involving or coming about are the same. You see what I'm saying? These are the things that I like to think about because I feel like this will allow for me to hopefully make better decisions if something else was to come about. Because as I had stated before, or as we just know, life is always about the next situation or the next decision that has to be made. You're always making decisions in life. It's an aha moment for me because it's like I know that this is a problem, and I'm the thing is also at the same time, it could be, as I mentioned before, it could be very scary to state that this is the actual problem. But I feel that in order to grow again as me, as a Bea Grant, I have to face this. I really have to face this because it's just, I can't ignore what is in front of me. You know what I mean? So that's the reason I really wanted to talk about this topic. But before I go ahead and get into the rest of the podcast episode, let's go ahead and get the housekeeping rules out of the way. So if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, be sure to hit the follow and notification button so Spotify lets you know when I release a new episode. As well, leave me a comment on what you enjoy about the podcast and give me a 5-star rating. This is how you can support my podcast. Now, the disclaimer is I am not a licensed psychiatrist or therapist. My suggestions and my guests are based on general knowledge and life experiences. If you're considering making significant changes or dealing with personal issues, seek and talk to a licensed mental health professional. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get back into this episode. So, although this is the thing, with my revelation last week, I was kind of left, as I mentioned before, with that aha moment. And although I came to part of the answer of me continuing to be in relationships, with a significant other, because of my insecurities, I feel in order to essentially find the root cause, we have to introduce other factors. Now, I am still at the point, I guess you can say, where I'm trying to better understand the decision that I made back then of why I keep investing into things that I shouldn't be investing into. And I could although say that now I have made better decisions. I feel that the relationship that I am in with my husband at this current, stage in my life is one of the best decisions that I have made for myself. But at the same time, I feel like that decision was ultimately a decision for the both of us. How I got into my next relationship was that I just didn't want to make the same mistake as I did before. I feel that in a way, honestly, when I invested my time into my husband, I was better off mentally. I was better off mentally, but I feel like how can I say this? I'm trying to find the right terminology. I feel like he already knew who he was. Like, he was already such a good person that I didn't have to, how can I say? I didn't have to be concerned on whether I was picking the right person. I'm not sure if that I'm not sure if that makes any sense. It was like he was already a good human being. You know what I mean? So I didn't have to worry about if I was investing myself into someone who was not going to do right by me. But at the same time, when I'm having this discussion with you guys, I've also made errors. I've made errors in my relationship because I feel like at the same time, I still had unresolved things and wanting to dominate the situation. And now I've talked about this in my past. I've got into discussion about this in my past. That dominating factor, and I already know where that comes from. If you listen to the past episodes, that has come from just the um no male role model, no man necessarily showing me that this is what a man does, and what like it's just that was non-existent. So I've already discovered where that has come from, and that definitely impacted our trajectory in our relationship. Is something that I've had to work on. But in this episode, because I wasn't necessarily going to talk about that. Not sure why that came up, but it did. But the purpose of this episode, what I really wanted to get into was to offer some ways to unroot the truth. Because I feel that sometimes we don't want to unroot the truth. Again, due to the fear, again, due to the insecurity. But to be our true selves, we need to take off the mask. I want to say, even though I'm mentioning these different, highlighting these different possibilities where you can unroot the truth, doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to change overnight. A lot of the things that I am going to discuss here are going to be even some of the things that I have discussed in the past, because at the same time, I feel like when you are on a journey, what you have to understand, or what I have understood, is that honestly it's about repetition. You have to think about it when you do a task. You may not get the task right the first time, but as you do it the second time, as you do it the third time, fourth time, and so forth, you start to do the task in a good way. You start to do it in a way that works out best for you. You may customize it for you in order for you to do it the way that is the best in alignment for yourself, and get you to the outcome as if somebody else was going to do it. But what you would notice is that honestly it's about repetition, and that is what I have learned, you know on my journey. So like I said, a lot of the things that I mention here, it's going to be things that I have mentioned before. However, it has to be said. So the first one that I want to discuss is being honest with yourself. And the thing is that you cannot change anything if you think nothing is wrong. And that's something that I have dealt with in my past. Of this is a problematic issue, and I try to basically put dirt on it, and put it in the grave and put dirt on top of it, and the weeds start growing, and then I'm basically faced with the same situation that I was faced with before, but now it has grown roots, and now it has exploded as I'm saying, to something else. So now I'm having to deal with what I buried along with the roots that have grown. You see what I'm saying? So it's very important that in trying to be authentic with yourself, trying to find security with yourself so that you are not insecure about whatever you may be dealing with, you have to be honest with yourself. You can't do anything without being honest with yourself. Now, the next one that I wanted to speak about is vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable if you're trying to change something about yourself. Again, this is repetition. Vulnerability is not about just being vulnerable one time. Vulnerability is about being vulnerable in a continuous process. Like, for instance, When I come on this podcast episode, or when I come on this podcast, not episode, every week I am choosing to be vulnerable. You know, every week I'm choosing to talk about my issues, unmasking them, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to help myself and I want to be able to help other people. So if I turn around and I sit here and I bottle everything up and I don't talk about it, you know, the fact of the matter is that I'm not being authentic to myself. I'm not being secure within myself. You understand what I'm saying? I should not be insecure about the things that has happened in my past, or the things that's happening currently, or the things that may happen in my future. The fact of the matter is that life is going to be life. You understand what I'm saying? We are going to make certain decisions. Things are not going to be hunky dory all the damn time. And it is what it is. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to be vulnerable. And I also want to add to that, being vulnerable, again, somebody else may hear something that you have gone through, and what you may say may impact that person. For them to have an aha moment and saying to themselves, okay, I'm ready to face so and so situation. You understand what I'm saying? So if you sit here again and just keep everything inside, the only person that you're hurting honestly is yourself. And I'm gonna be true. You understand what I'm saying? Now, this episode is gonna be preachy, just to let you know. It is going to be preachy, but I come on here to be real. I come on here not to showcase the positive all the time. I come on here to be honest with you guys that, you know, life is going to be freaking life. You understand what I'm saying? And it's scary, but as you continue to move through that fear, it's going to get better. You understand what I'm saying? I'm proof of that. There's been a lot of things that has happened in my life that was freaking scary, but I got through it. And I am a better person today due to it. You see what I'm saying? So let's get into the next one. I actually already talked about this point just now, being unafraid. You can't be scared to admit and face your challenges. I already spoke about that before, so I'm not gonna delve in that too much since I already touched on that. But just being unafraid and wanting to see yourself in a better situation, whatever situation that may be, whether it's internal, whether it's external, just ultimately a better circumstances for yourself. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Reflection by Abia. Feel free to check out the podcast Facebook and Instagram page. The links will be available in the show notes. Let's get back to the podcast. So now the next one that I have is value the good and the bad. This approach allows you to stay mindful and intentional on your journey. So the fact of the matter is that for me, I value all my fuck ups and I value all the good things that has happened in my life. The fact of the matter is that I value my fuck ups because it's taught me a lesson. You understand what I'm saying? If I did not mess up, where's the lesson in life? Where is the growth in life? Where is the change in the beer if I do not fuck up? You understand what I'm saying? You're going to fuck up. And as I mentioned before, that is the journey in life. The journey in life is that you're going to make poor decisions. But at the same time, you're going to make good decisions. You're going to make decisions that you're going to be like, wow, I'm glad that I decided to go down this road. And even the bad decisions, you're going to say, I'm glad that I went down this road because it's going to stop me from making a bad decision in the future. But at the end of the day, you have to approach it as that I intentionally made this mistake, but it was a journey. And I'm better off now due to that journey. So again, you have to value the good and you have to value the bad. Now, the next one that I wanted to get to is trust your intuition. And this means that if you feel in your gut that whatever decision you're thinking about is best for you, I say go with your gut. Now, there's a difference between trusting in your gut due to fear, because sometimes I've gone with my gut, which, how can I say this? I don't even necessarily think it was my gut, to be honest with you. Not that I think more about it. I think that it was my fear. My gut was telling me one thing, but my fear was telling me another thing, and instead I listened to my fear. I'm gonna be honest with you. I really feel like that is what it was. Like when I think about I talk about it, if you listen to the other episode, the narcissistic relationship, I should have trusted my gut. When that man had told me, "Oh, did you see the picture that was in my wallet and that this was my kid?" I should have trusted my gut. My gut was telling me to walk away. But not even necessarily the fear, but the insecurity in myself and me thinking that this person could potentially lead me down a road that I wouldn't be able to lead myself down on in a positive way. I was willing to deal with the bull because I thought that he could give me something that I wanted. But in realization, I should have just trusted my gut and saying, Abia, this man is not being honest with you. You've only been dating him a couple of months. What are you doing? So the next one I want to get into is identify and release limiting beliefs. Many of us carry suppressed or unconscious feelings that hold us back from being our true self. We need to identify those beliefs, challenge them, and replace them with positive thoughts that can change the impact of our life and the direction of our life. So, limited beliefs, I'm going to be honest with you, is for me having this belief that I would not get where I need to get to. I speak a lot about in the episode about how that, you know, I continue, well, after my relationship, I got back into school and how that I really wanted to pursue my education. I really, wanted to do that. Now, ultimately, prior to that, well, not ultimately, prior to that, this was very conflicting for me. This was very conflicting for me because I felt like, well, do you really want to, one, spend more money to go back to school to pursue your education? You never gave a damn before, so why would you think that you would give a damn now? And I feel like this was subconsciously in my mind that, how can I say, the my value for myself was just at a low. I felt also at the time that I ultimately just wasn't smart enough um to even do well. I felt very just, I want to say very disorganized. But at this time, what changed for me is I remember my uncle's wife. And at this time, I believe she was going for her master's degree. And I said to myself, she had, I think, at this time, maybe two children, husband, home. And I said to myself, Abia, if she could do it, you could do it. You know, I looked at her as a role model, to be honest with you. And I said to myself, if you put your all into your education, you will get where you need to get to. You will get that degree. I wound up graduating with, I believe, a 3.8 GPA um, when I left school because it was like I put a battery in my back. I threw out all those subconscious feelings of I did not have any value. But watching somebody push themselves so much in seeking and wanting more for themselves just help me in my mind say, okay, you can do this. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I did. And I feel now accomplished. I feel very accomplished. I even to all the time mention to my husband, yeah, babe, I graduated from here and I have this degree, and I even tell it to other people because I value the time and effort that I put into this, something that I truly wanted for myself. You know what I mean? So this is how you can help with those insecurities, to be honest with you, and be rooted in your true self. So the next one that I wanted to talk about is live in alignment with your actions. Reflect on your values and goals and consider whether you're meeting them, because these choices shape the bigger picture. Each decision should bring you a sense of comfort and confidence in your journey. So when I spoke about education in the last bullet point, it's like I was in alignment with who I wanted to be. I took actionable steps. I seeked and I talked to a counselor. Believe at that time I had talked to the aunt that I was speaking about. I had pushed myself in the direction that I wanted to go to. The bigger picture is that I wanted to see that I accomplished something that I put my mind to. And it was pouring back into me. And is what I wanted for myself. So the fact of the matter is, I thought about the values that I wanted for myself. I thought about the goal that I wanted to reach. And that goal was walking down that road, or not road, walking down that aisle when I had my diploma in my hand and saying, you did it. And then on top of that, to get announced with my name saying that I was Magnum Cum Laude, that was an even more battery in my back. That was even more accomplishments that I had succeeded at. You understand what I'm saying? And I want to say at the end of the day, it was not about ego. It was about me wanting this so much for myself, and I took actionable steps to get where I needed to get to. It's very important, that you are living in your authentic true self, that you are aligning with who you want to be. So you have to state who you want to be. You have to know who you want to be. If that means that you have to write it down and say, this is who I want to be, then that's what you're going to have to do. Like in the past episode, I wrote down who I wanted to be, how I wanted to react to certain situations, what goals I wanted for myself. I knew the direction that I wanted to go in. So again, we have to take those actionable tools. We have to want this for ourselves, you know? So let's get into the last bullet point, and that is challenge your need for approval. Not everyone will understand your choices, but it's essential to remember that it is your life. Sometimes letting go of the need for external approval is necessary to stay true to yourself. And the reason why I listed this as the last bullet point is that I feel like this is a primary bullet point. We are always seeking approval from the outside world. We are always seeking approval, validation for whatever that we're choosing to do in our life. And what I have learned is that in order to be secure within myself, and that means to not be insecure, in order for me to live authentically like me, Abia Grant, I have to not give a fuck what other people think, or not try to seek approval for what other people think about me. You understand what I'm saying? And I know that sounds pretty messed up. It sounds pretty jacked up. But the fact of the matter is that life is about choices. Sometimes you make good choices, and sometimes you make bad choices. But ultimately, you made a choice and you're having to deal with that choice. And some people may not understand why you are headed in that direction. Some people may even try to steer you in the other direction. But ultimately, it's about what you want to do for yourself. Because at the end of the day, what I realize is that your choices impact you. Yes, it may impact your partner. It may impact, if you are sharing a home with relatives and things like that. But ultimately, you have to be sound within your choice. I find that sometimes a lot of people don't want to make the choice for themselves because they are hoping that the person next to them is going to give them praise. They hope the person next to them is going to accept them for whatever choices that they are deciding to make for their life. And what I have realized again is that not everybody is going to be on board, and that is okay. But at the end of the day, as long as you are sound within your choice, then that's ultimately what matters. Not everybody is going to understand, and that's okay. As long as you understand, then you do what you need to do for yourself. You see what I'm saying? I know I just repeated myself with understand, but you need to do what is going to pour into you, because that is just what is going to be authentic to you. That is what's going to make you feel comfortable. Now, I want to go ahead in this episode with something that I highlighted here. And when I think about a root, I see a starting point that grows into various directions. Ultimately, sometimes these directions actually intertwine with other roots. But what I notice in life is that at the end of the day, being rooted in the truth of your insecurity is you having the commitment to accept yourself and be willing to grow. And ultimately, that is what it's all about. It is about growth. It's about being in your authentic selves. As long as you are living in your authentic selves and who you want to truly be, and confronting all the things that are coming about and willing to face them and wanting to make better decisions, then you're going to be living authentically. So that is where I'm going to leave this week's podcast episode. I hope that maybe there's something that I said that ring the bell to you. Maybe something that you can jot down that's going to help you on your journey. I know that these bullet points here has helped me on my journey, and continue to help me on my journey. So that's where I'm going to leave this week's episode. Stay blessed out there in those streets. Make sure that you treat others kindly out there in those streets. And God willing, I'll see you guys in the next podcast episode. Thank you for listening to Reflection by Abia. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about today's episode, and share the podcast with your friends and family. The link will be available in the show notes.